Mr. Miller, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to let the record show that Mr. Sharp and Mr. Dowden are absent. All other members are present. Mr. Board, has public notice been given?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. On to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes, December 17th, 2025? So moved. Motion made by Mr. Billion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Discussion. Mr. Billion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to our discussion, 3A, discussion on governance culture policies. All right. In a continuation of going through our GCs, we left off on GC 5, so we're going to start this off with GC 6. Continue doing the same format. We'll just do a round robin with the bullets underneath the bold topics for discussion. Just give an overall summary of the bullet points. So the first bullet point under GC 6 board committee principles is purpose and formation. When should the board establish committees and for what purpose? Should committees be used primarily for information gathering, detailed work, or decision preparation? I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Bailey.
All right, as far as establishing committees, it'd be as needed. We have special projects, special things that are going on that would need to have similar to what we have right now with the ad hoc committee for the referendum items. If there's things that need more in-depth research or ongoing processes, and then I said yeah, all of the above on as far as why they should be formed for. Depends on what the purpose of those committees would be. It needs to be detailed work, decision preparation, or just information gathering.
Pretty much the same. I mean, I had to look some of this stuff up. So, I mean, from what I was gathering, it's like, you know, you have different types of committee, variety of different types of committees. You have standing committees, ad hocs, and joint committees. Depends on what the problem is at hand, I guess, you know, and how long you want the committee to be monitoring these things. So I guess what I'm saying is it kind of remains to be determined upon the situations presented, I guess. Otherwise, I can, you know, Scott, I don't have a lot to add on that, I guess.
Yeah, basically said the same thing as needed when we gotta dig into like certain issues or handling tests that require more time. And the second part, all of it.
And I'm probably just gonna echo what Scott said and what Tiffany and Brian said too.
Yes, me as well. Probably the only different thing that I may have is the scope of the committee may determine on what we need to get from them, whether it's information gathering, detailed work, or decision preparation. Right, any other further discussion on the purpose and formation? All right, we'll move on down to authority and scope then. How do we ensure committees do not overstep into administrative or operational areas? Should committees make recommendations only, or can they take limited actions within board-approved parameters? Mr. Miller, start us off on that one.
Well, from my review of things, it said that committees typically have limited decision-making authority, but they can be part of decision-making and providing discussion points and information. seems that committees are primarily used to gather information relevant to the decision-making of the board as a body. So again, maybe you got, maybe there's a more expanded view on that, but, from what I'm finding with committees, it's primarily information gathering and using that to present to the board as a body to make final determinations. Kind of like what we're doing right now. I guess that's kind of how it's set up.
I'm gonna just kind of mimic that. I set committees are for preparation and helping the board make decisions.
I'm probably gonna agree with both Brian and Tiffany, but I also said, I think as far as should committees make recommendations only, or can they take limited actions with board approved parameters? I said yes to both because of time saving and efficiency.
Yep, agree with everything. I'll also add as far as overstepping, as long as board members follow the incompatibility of offices, policies, and just overall board ethics. It should be pretty clear what our guardrails are as far as where we operate. I would like to see, for efficiency reasons as well, depending on the committee, what their purpose is, could potentially take actions and then just come to the full board as, discussion and information.
Basically the same thing. As far as the administrative and operational areas, to not overstep, having a set of rules, essentially what the goals are, parameters that are created at the onset of those committees. Have checks and balances, so communication with administration that, hey, you're going a little bit too far and digging deeper into what is outside of the parameters that we're given. And then, like Sheila said, that having opportunity to take limited actions based on need, timeliness, purpose. We allow Mr. Board to take action as needed. If there's something that has to be done in a quicker time frame than what our next meeting is going to be, it makes sense to give them the authority to do that.
Any other further discussion on authority and scope? All right, we'll move on then to membership and structure. How should members be selected? By the president, by vote, or by volunteer assignment? And should committees include community members or staff as advisors? Let's start with Ms. Thompson.
I actually went for all three on that, by the president, by vote, and by volunteer assignment. That's what I put on there. And should the committees include community members? Yes. Staff as advisors? Possibly. That's what I put down for that. I'm trying to think back to what I was meaning with all of my answers. I'm still brainstorming, like, what do I mean by this? It's been a little while.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta go for my answers here.
Well, I think, as far as the first part of the question, I think we have to be a little bit careful with, new members coming on, new board members, learning the process and how this works. I know when I got, I've learned a lot just being on this board. I do agree with Tiffany, that it can be by volunteer, by vote, but I also think it's really important that the president plays a role in that, to make sure that, they understand the committee and how that functions. And then I said yes to the second part. I just think the more transparent we can be, the better it is.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Sheila. I mean, I really don't have a whole lot to add other than just echo what I said earlier. The purpose of the committee could determine the formation of it, who's on it. But yes, I mean, policy currently is the president assigns roles for committees, not to say that can't change. So again, it's situational, and we'll learn as we continue going down this road.
I pretty much said the same thing. The first step is some people have to be willing to serve on that committee, so volunteering that, just sharing that with the president and president deciding if it happens to be where it needs to come to a vote by the board, we can do that. Then should they include staff or community members as advisors potentially? I think, like Aaron said, it just depends on what the purpose of that committee really is. It needs to have those pieces in the an advisory form.
Same, basically echoing the same thing. I guess how does should be selected, I guess, doing the research, you said by recognizing the committee members' interests and strengths. So if somebody, looks or is interested in the committee and or they have something they can bring to the committee, that'd be a good reason. And should the community members, yes, that, they can form a joint committee where you can bring in maybe someone from the committee that might have expertise in a certain area and they can offer their insight into that, so. Sure.
Any other discussion on membership and structure? We're gonna keep her moving then. On to accountability and transparency. What reporting expectations should committees meet to keep the board informed? Should committee work and findings be accessible to the public unless confidential by law? This one will start. This track, so.
Well, I put down that the committee chairs should report to the full board. I also put down that, again, I'm just gonna kind of harp on that transparency thing. That I said yes, that it should be accessible to the public unless confidential by law. I think just the more transparency we have and the trust that we'll bring from that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Expectations is always, keep that line of communication flowing from the committee through the board and into the public. That would never change. And yes, should they be accessible to the public unless confidential by law? Absolutely. And we actually think we do a pretty good job of that today with everything being posted public and on the site, so. But we can continue to get better at that as well.
I echo the same thing. The only note that I put on was, no, there's no reason to report if there's nothing to report. So it's, don't waste time with no real progress or change is needed to be shared. It could be something as simple as nothing to report. If people know that there was a meeting that was held, that might just be initial discussions or whatever the case might be.
I agree. I would need to add, the board, according to information online, according to the Illinois Open Meeting Act, the board is a public body, and so reporting to the public is important. It depends on the situation too. So, yeah, but yes, it should for the most part.
I agree with Scott. Report back when there's information, rather than every time or just say, "Oh, nothing new," just so that, you're kept in the loop, everybody knows what's going on. And the second part of it, absolutely should be made accessible.
I think everybody knows I'm a big advocate of meeting efficiency, so
Yes.
the non-value added things are not value added. All right, any other discussion on accountability and transparency? All right, then we'll move on to duration and dissolution. Should committees exist only as long as necessary to complete a defined charge? And how long will the board determine when a committee's work is complete? I think this ties nicely back to purpose and formation. If you have a purpose for the committee, there should be some expectations and outcomes, goals. When those defined objectives are complete, then that committee would dissolve. And as far as how long will the board determine when a committee's work is complete, I think that kind of determines that. But there might be, like the referendum one is a good example where there's milestones into the future. So those, as far as when it would be dissolved, could be more defined and treated probably a little bit more differently.
Yeah, pretty much same thing.
Yeah, I have yes, and when a situation or issue is resolved or it's finished.
I said the same thing, yes, and when the project is completed or the board makes the final vote.
Discussion on duration and the solution. We'll move on then to GC7, board and superintendent relationship principles. Okay, so the first topic of discussion for this is role clarity. How do we define the boundary between governance, board work, and management, superintendent work? Should the superintendent have full authority over operations within board-approved policies and budget? This one, we'll start with Mr. Malin.
As far as the boundary between governance and management, the board's setting the overall goal or need within the oversight of progress and steps for completion. And superintendent would have the daily hands-on how to accomplish, setting those parameters and instructions to disseminate out to the rest of the district. And should the superintendent have full authority? Yes, as long as it's within the parameters that we have created, and have oversight by the board with check-ins, feedback of admin, public, have those things defined before, then you can adjust those different things as needed, depending on how long or what the actual step is. And obviously, the biggest thing is just communication all the way across.
I feel the same. I mean, creating protocols that outline the expectations, responsibilities, reviewing the agreements, maintaining open communication and regular updates or check-ins, which I think is what's going on now. Otherwise, yeah, superintendent should have the authority to over the operations of the plan. And, you know, checking in and making sure everybody's still on the same page.
That's exactly what I got down here too. Board establishes a policy and the district administrator to administer such policy. And yeah, definitely with the check-ins and.
I've got nothing to add. I'm just gonna agree with her.
Yeah, I honestly don't have anything to add either. Everything's been covered pretty well. I guess I will add though, you know, we worked pretty hard over the last couple of years to get to kind of that point where we're at like this topic right here. So we'll continue doing that and get better at it. But yes, you know, expectations is always keeping the board informed and reporting back. Any other discussion on role clarity? All right, we'll move on then to delegation and accountability. How should the board delegate authority to the superintendent while retaining accountability? Should delegation include a clear statement that the superintendent's performance equals district performance? So we'll start with Mr. Miller.
All right, well, basically the first part of this echoes what we just said. So just defining the responsibilities of superintendent and the delegation of authority for operational decisions while maintaining oversight through regular reviews and accountability measures. Ensures the superintendent can act effectively while the board remains informed and involved in key decisions. That's the first part of that. The second part of it, I'm waiting to hear what you guys have to say. I remained neutral on that. I don't have a real clear answer, so.
For that, I've got, give them room to determine the best method of implementing the policies of the board, reporting at board meetings, performance reviews. The very last one, I'm laughing at what Brian said because I said undecided.
I mean, I don't think that onus has to be put on one particular person.
No.
So,
Yeah. That's a big expectation, yeah.
I just had, once duties are clearly defined and we ask the superintendent to update us regularly on positive but also negative concerns. I think that on the second part, I think the better the superintendent is, I think the success will just follow that. And I think you have happier employees, happier families coming here. And I think by the amount of students that we're gaining, I think that clearly shows that the superintendent is doing their job. I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, so we're going down the policy type governance model, so. The first bullet to me is, define those guardrails through policy. What bandwidth does the superintendent have to operate with? And there might be some potential gray areas from time to time, but the expectation, for holding accountability is at least having the communication. And if you have trust, then operate it in that level of gray, especially if it's time sensitive. You can't get a meeting set up or whatever. As long as we have that trust and the open communication and some sort of, policy somewhere that also gives that leeway, I think, we'll be fine. But as far as the second one, that one was tough too, because for me, it's situational, I think. Whatever the outcome or expectation is for something will determine if district performance truly is the measure to hold somebody accountable to. I don't think that's not a catch-all bucket. I don't think. I think there's some things that would fall outside of that, just situational.
I guess one of the thoughts that I had was trust the process. So the way I might do something, anybody else would get it from point A to completion. We just have to trust that the superintendent has the goal in mind and work how you get to that point. And for that second bullet, I actually had head coach. Jim Harbaugh just experienced it. And he's very successful coach and he got fired.
John,
sorry.
Jim's still there.
Jim, I heard him. He's done it. Yeah, John Harbaugh, thank you, Mr. Board. But it's the team result is directed from one person. You have to have buy-in, you have to have that pyramid that's going down. And the superintendent doesn't have that buy-in from top administrators below, and then be able to disseminate that down. That might be a need for a change on how those results get pushed through and brought down. So, and I don't know that it's necessarily specific things, but superintendent's performance equals district performance. I think it goes hand in hand. So the district's going to get better when you have better teachers and staff. Teachers and staff get better by having better administration. Administration gets better by having a better superintendent. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a clear statement, but I think that's the expectation.
Anything, Brian, Tiffany, you guys thought of during the round robin?
Yeah.
Add?
To that last part, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I can, I think it's important to have a strong from top to bottom administration, and, with the common goal in mind. I think as long as everybody's striving for, success or achievement, I think, it becomes the culture. And, it can have a strong motivating factor for sure, in the performance of the students. So. Again, I don't have any, I'm not gonna nail it down to say yes or no exactly, but I think, there's, consensus and feeling that, you expected things from your entire staff. Hopefully that's the culture. I think it is here. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess I've heard several times of, you surround yourself with good people or successful people, you're gonna become successful, so. Yeah.
There's discussion. Right then. Move on then to monitoring and evaluation. What should the process and frequency be for monitoring superintendent performance? Should the board's evaluation focus primarily on results and compliance with operational expectations? So, Mr. Thompson starts.
I guess depending on circumstances, different things going on, I guess if there's different, situations going on, maybe monitoring, evaluation going on through that, but as far as like a year-to-year basis, I wrote down 6 months to a year. I'm guessing a year, because pretty much it takes a while for progress to go through and to see results from changes. And then for the second part, have somewhat, definitely. Should the board's evaluation focus primarily on results in compliance with operational expectations? I also have down here how handle staff deals with conflicts and management.
Well, I guess having been an employer myself, I always look at, probably, an annual review, unless there's just something that really sticks out. I also put down maybe, the state has certain, dates and data requirements, and, maybe there's something that ties in with that. And I just put, that students are always our top priority, and I guess enrollment and data will determine that.
Yeah, I just, for me, annual that's policy right now anyways, as far as a formal evaluation, but for me, being a people leader in the corporate world, continually monitoring people's performance through, like I do one-on-ones and such, or the board superintendent relationships and discussions that we have, in close when it's about performance or whatever, like we can always continually be talking about these things too as things come up. Like it's not something that I feel you just do it once a year and you're kind of done with it. It's something that we all have to monitor, and actually as we get further into this with board things, it's the same thing. As the board, we should be doing the same thing as well with one another, continually monitoring these things. Yeah, the second bullet point, I just said yes.
Obviously, the annual review, something I had quarterly touch points with the president. And then, as we've talked about, ongoing, so if there's things happening that might need to have some corrective action, or maybe just different discussion that should be ongoing, we're doing that now. And I have that based on feedback and results. And for the second part, it's students first. And sometimes you have to tear things down and have to make a mess. So it might look like it's going the wrong direction, but it might be so you can build things back stronger and better. So it can't just necessarily be superficial results oriented, because like I said, it could actually get a lot worse before it gets better. And if there's positive changes that are helping move toward the goals, faculty, staff feedback, report card, student standards results, we're moving forward, then unless there's expectations that it's taking too long to do that, but otherwise I think it's pretty much everyone else's stuff.
I don't have really anything to add. Looks like you can, there's a variety of ways of doing it, quarterly, mid-year, annual. Sounds like annual is kind of the standard, evaluations. And then the second part was yes, should focus primarily on the results and yeah, let's see, the results in compliance with the expectations that have been set out. But also understanding that sometimes the situation doesn't operate as smoothly as you'd hoped, and so there's ups and downs sometimes, but we're, just trying to keep the goals in mind.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll move on then to trust and communication. How can the board and superintendent maintain open communication without blurring roles? Should there be regular board superintendent check-ins or written updates outside formal meetings? So we start off with Mr. Axel.
Well, I had down that we set very specific standards, so those roles don't get blurred. I think it's the board's responsibility to make it very clear. I think that responsibility falls on us to make it very clear to the superintendent what his role is, and that we don't blur those lines and that we don't micromanage. We're just here to make sure that everything that they do makes them successful, because in turn, that makes our school successful, and that makes us as a board successful. I put down, as far as the regular written updates outside formal meetings, I said, I feel that the way that we report right now, the superintendent giving us updates and things like that, I don't think we, unless it's a very special situation, that we need to go more in depth than that.
Yeah, and for me, it's holding one another accountable to the processes and policies, keep the incompatibility of offices and policies and ethics in mind, and those roles won't get blurred. Yes, Sheila, I completely agree with you on the second one. We do that today. I think Mr. Board does an excellent job in keeping us informed outside of regular scheduled meetings, whether it's, say, something that had a really good day today in school, or, oh, hey, we had to have an ambulance come to school, or these one-off things. We already have pretty good open lines of communication with the superintendent. So I don't know how much more it can be improved upon, but so keep it up, Mr. Bird.
Dialogue, open honest conversations, and both sides being willing to see things from different perspectives. Same as discussed before, that the way I might think of how to do something might be completely different. Somebody else will just be, well, no, you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way. Trust the process. The same thing for the communication that we have currently, that keep doing what we're doing. Seems to be working.
I don't have anything to add. I agree with everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I pretty much agree with everything too, and with how you were saying, trust the process and stuff, I had put on here too, I think it brainstorming, bouncing ideas off each other, but yet knowing each other's path. You know, you know what your path is, what their path is. And the second part of it is, yes, I feel that we do that already. As far as with the, check-ins and, updates and stuff like that. I feel like we do a really good job with that already.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll move on then to unity and professional conduct. How should the board handle disagreements with the superintendent while maintaining professional respect? Should all direction to staff come only through the superintendent, never directly from board members? I think overall we've got really good board and administrative dynamics going on, so we do have some situations where things might get a little tense, but overall, as long as everybody understands where the other person's coming from, listens to them, there can always be some mutual respect and the middle ground found. And I think most part we all do that pretty well today. The second part, yes, absolutely. We don't manage the day-to-day operations. I think we've all heard that 100 times, and something I'm going to continue to say as well. I mean, we hold Mr. Board accountable. It's ultimately his responsibility, that part down to the communications with staff and direction and such. We don't interfere with that.
And under that first part, I had to eliminating motion and focus on the written shared goals, expectations. Some of it could be just sharing the why. Like, this is why I'm doing this. This is the outcome that I feel it can happen by doing it in a certain way. And then I just have the superintendent takes the lead and the board's our role to back up and support those decisions and actions.
Well, bullet points here, the establishment of clear rules and defining responsibilities. Avoiding micromanagement by the board. Board focuses on governance rather than administration. Foster open communication. Regular check-ins can be advantageous in that. Use transparent communication, sharing information honestly and completely, focusing on shared goals, alignment on objectives, and again, the development of a strategic plan, maintaining professionalism, respect individual perspectives and treat all members with respect, stay solution oriented, focus on finding solutions rather than assigning blame to anyone.
I would have to agree exactly with that. That's pretty much what I had down here with it, and knowing the why, pretty much would probably clear up a lot of questions that people might have, as long as you understand why and where they're coming from. It would be good, and I guess some of the things I think of too is not blindsiding them with the disagreement or something like that, just sending questions by email or whatever, so that they have time to formulate their why or answers and stuff. And I think the second part of it, I have yes on that one, definitely. It should all go through the superintendent.
I pretty much agree with everything that was already said. And on the second part, I just said, I think it's really important to remain consistent. That's how we all stay consistent to make a clear answer.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, moving on to GC8, board linkages with the community. Okay, First bullet is part of it, purpose of linkages. How should the board define its responsibility to represent the community's values and priorities? Should board decisions reflect community input, educational research, or a balance of both?
Well, since we're putting together a screening committee to listen to our community, just at a high level of expectations versus specific knowledge. Policy and statutes, student outcomes being our priority. And then I have both as good of the many, which is good of the few, so it's balancing between wants and needs. So it could be that the community wants to do X and because of law or finances or whatever the case is, but can't do that. Well, as long as we're still focused on the kids, so I think that will pretty much take care of all of it.
Yes, the board has responsibility to represent the community's values and priorities. And there's a variety of ways to do that, and it's pretty extensive here, but active listening to community members, including parents, students, staff, and local organizations, and incorporating their input into development of district vision, goals, and policies. So yes, we do represent the community. And there's a variety of should decisions reflect community input, educational research, and balance, and I said both as well.
The first bullet point I have, yes, we want to represent the values if it benefits the kids, is how I put on this. That is the main goal, is for benefiting the kids. And then for the second one, yes, again, benefiting the kids. Benefiting the students.
I really don't have much to add to that, and then I too said on part two, the balance of both.
Yeah, I think the strategic planning outcomes, goals, priorities, mission, vision, and all those statements is gonna, define the board's responsibility to the public. The second one, the only thing I have that's really different than anything else that's been said is, just want to make sure that everybody makes informed decisions. Fact finding things versus personal bias and speaking in absolutes. Those are the things that I just want people to always be aware of. And ultimately, get the facts and make informed decisions. Right, any other discussion? Okay, move on to engagement methods. What are the best ways for the board to hear from the community? Forums, surveys, advisory groups, or partnerships? How often should the board seek community input to guide major policy or results decisions? Mr. Miller.
Well, basically, yes, from what I could find, it was all the above. Forum, surveys, advisory groups, and partnerships. And how often, I guess it depends, some of the, if you have partnerships, it could be a long-term process. So I guess it kind of depends on maybe on the situation at hand, but I think all of those things are advantageous.
I don't have anything to add to that.
I'm a big supporter of the public forums. I think especially the ones that you have held in the last 2 years, I think have been really well attended. I think it really gets spreading the word out. Surveys, I think they play a role, but sometimes people don't, always respond to surveys. But I still think they're important to have. I think partnerships are really critical, because those are just play a very important part. of moving our community forward. Because a lot of times those same partnerships cross lines. So you want to have that support, for example, city, county. And I said, as far as, seek community input, I said annually, but maybe with quarterly updates.
Yes, I agree with everything so far said. I did read though, how often the board should seek community input to guide major policy or results decisions. I looked at that more as, continually, whether you're out in public or wherever, or whether it's a forum or a group or a partnership you have with somebody, like continually seeking that input, I think is important. Like we should never rest on our laurels or accept status quo. We should always be getting that feedback and making informed decisions. Communicating out.
I agree with the first part. Obviously, it's based on what your desired results are, we could define how input we receive. Then I guess I took a little bit different thought process with major policy. In my mind, that was 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plans. So you're not doing that on a continuous basis with the community, because you get together with the community, set those goals that, hey, in 3 years, we want to have X, Y, and Z done. And in 5 years, we want to have this done, whatever. So that's a little bit different thought process that way to have those major big policy things. Obviously, things that are a little more flexible, that's continual input from the community to make sure answering their calls. And then I also have the board is empowered by the elections. So every year, the community gets to say yea or nay to who's representing their area. And then the surveys, they must be statistically relevant. If we're asking a question that doesn't really give us a good result, because we don't have no participation, then we have to look at things different on how do we increase that engagement of the community.
I agree with you. When I first was thinking about it, the word major stuck out to me. It's like, well, for strategic planning, like that to me would be a major thing, but we can't also not look at things that happen continuously as well. So for me, it's like, how do you capture both? That's kind of why I chose to go the continually method. But yes, totally agree with what you said, because the word major was hanging me up when I was looking at it first time.
And for those ongoing things, that's the reason that we have public comment available. And our information is out there, the community people need to share thoughts and such with us and get back to us.
Anything else? Mr. Miller?
Nothing to add, really. I think that was,
Oh, you started us off in that one, never mind.
yeah, that's okay.
You wanna go to place?
Well, my second one.
No, I'm all about
my next
meeting
one's about the
efficiency.
same.
Same discussion.
Go ahead, tell yourself.
I apologize for that. I got
It's okay. I can do it again if you want.
Yeah, get a second thought. Second guess at yourself. All right, any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, then we'll move on. Representation and equity. How can the board ensure it hears from all groups in the community, not just the most vocal? Should policies specify equity as a lens for all board engagement efforts? Mrs. Thompson, we'll start this one.
With that first part, getting input from all the groups, I guess that's where, in the question prior to this, where it was talking about advisory groups and surveys, things like that. Sometimes the forums you might hear the most vocal, people at the forums. Um, But, and I think like how we're picking the committee as far as getting a wide variety of people to go on to the committee. And then the second part of that is, it helps ensure that the diversity and inclusion is not just an afterthought. So.
For myself, I again, put down, surveys, open forums that they can ask questions. Usually, sometimes people are afraid to ask a question, but if they have that question, usually someone in the group has that same question and it will come out. I do think that, Carrie does an excellent job. If she posts something, and somebody has a question, she immediately responds to it. By the way, thank you for letting me know my granddaughter's in the spelling bee. I was not told that. I saw it on the Richland School District. Had to talk with my son about that. So, but I mean, I think that's really important that we hit things head on. You know, we don't dance around it. If there's a concern, you know, we address it. I think people appreciate that, even if it's not maybe sometimes the answer they want to hear. But I think we have to make our best effort. I mean, in a lot of ways, there's only so much we can do. You know, we can only offer so many ways to ask people to come to us with concerns. And I think we do a great job right now in doing that. I don't know many more ways that we can change that, but we just have to make our very, very best effort that we're treating everyone equal.
Yeah, for me, you know, be involved, be engaged, ask questions, because to your point, not everybody feels comfortable asking questions. And I also think the more people can be involved and engaged in the community, the more you're out there, putting yourself out there, you can engage people in other ways too. Solicit some of that feedback and bring it back and continually, you know, growing and learning. It's all I had in there.
The first part I had, stay student focused, we're responsible for all kids, not just, all kids' best interest. And I wrote on the phone policy, so we don't listen to the loudest voices, we want to have a phone policy. And as it turns out, it's been a very good thing. So it's a lot of times it's the loud minority that overtakes the quiet majority. We just have to be careful and mindful of that. One of the,
I was gonna say that, I'm glad you did instead of me.
then for that second part, it's opportunity versus equity. So I guess we have to be careful on how equity is defined, what our purpose is. And we have to meet students where they are. I think we're doing a great job with our alternative education opportunities versus just traditional school. Some kids that, hey, every kid has a Chromebook, every kid gets to ride the bus to school, every kid gets to do whatever. Okay, so it's equitable. But if they need to be at partner school because that's how they learn for themselves better, then the equity piece of it doesn't necessarily have the same impact. We just have to be mindful of making sure that we're taking care of each kid where they are at that particular time.
Basically the same. I don't know about that too. I think a lot of this answer was previously addressed in the previous answer. So just in public engagement in the various forms that we just discussed. And as far as equity, again, it was, I guess for me, you know, equity would mean that voices are heard in a non-discriminative way. You know, everybody has concerns and they should be able to, well, maybe they don't, but I mean, if they do, they should be able to address those and be considered you know, openly and valued, I guess.
All right, any other discussion on representation and equity? We'll move on then to communication standards. What expectations should we have for how the board communicates decisions back to the community? Should there be any defined protocol for responding to community feedback or concerns? Mr. Axel?
Well, one of the things that, that I really appreciate is that, Mr. Board goes on the radio once a month and, is very honest about, not only our achievements, but also the things we need to improve on. I think that really, reflects out to a large audience. There's been many times when people have said, hey, I heard, Steve Board on the radio and he said this or that. And I have noticed that pretty much now all schools are following suit and they're all doing that on the radio. But I think, by doing that, by, the newspaper, the school Facebook, the Hornet happenings, I mean, there's a lot of ways right now we're getting stuff out to the public. So I think that that's been just a huge, actually a really big, huge improvement, back to the community. And they appreciate that. And then I also think on, the second question, I always think we need to be consistent. So we need to have something in place that we, if it's superintendent, then board president, and it goes in that direction, because I think that's where we stay consistent. If we all kind of start, Tiffany says one thing, or Brian, or myself, all of a sudden we're not consistent. And I think that that's really important, that we've agreed on this and this is how we're going to carry it forward to the public.
I'm speechless. Took all of my words. Good.
I just had one voice with a common message, lead with president and superintendent. And should there be defined protocol? Absolutely. But and board discussion to decide what that common voice is. So it could be that we have something we put on that's a 4-3 vote. And the 3 people that were against it are still supportive of the 4 and the final decision that was made. Start making cracks. If there are cracks that develop, then people can obviously manipulate those and create a narrative that isn't necessarily there.
I think everything's been touched on. I had to offer as well. So, for the sake of expediency, I would call.
Yeah, I said most of it we're already doing as far as the videos and all the stuff, getting it out to the public. And second part, everyone's already taken it to yes, one speaker and consistent. So, yeah.
All right, any other discussion on communication standards? Move on then to trust and transparency. How do we demonstrate transparency without compromising confidentiality? Should the board regularly publish summaries of actions and outcomes related to community goals? Yes, obviously, compromising confidentiality is always something that's at the forefront of our minds. We have policy and law that prohibit us to do that. So, honestly, the way that we demonstrate transparency today through all those communication avenues and everything else, and our ability to keep confidential things confidential, I don't know if there's anything else that we're looking to add to that or change. Should the board regularly publish summaries of actions and outcomes related to community goals? Absolutely. And I think Mr. Schrader said it best the last meeting, that there will absolutely be communications coming out. There's going to be additional website thing attached to the school district site. There's going to be continual communications back to the community, and the steering committee members will absolutely be a part of that as well. So from the strategic planning part, we absolutely will be publishing those things related to community goals.
Same thing. Again, sharing the why. If someone asks a question that is has to remain confidential because of statute's policy. Sharing that with people that, it's not that we don't want to share it with you, it's just we can't because of whatever the laws happen to state. And then as far as the regularly published summaries, that could vary depending on what the goal is, what the length of time to get those measurable results could be. It could be that it's monthly, quarterly, 6 months, once a year. It could be longer than that if it's a 10-year plan. And you know, if it's gonna, not much has changed in the first year, so that may not be an update for that. But just as needed, and I agree with everything that's been said already tonight, that I think we're doing a fantastic job on our side sharing things, but it's still a struggle of how do we make sure that more people actually see the information that we're putting out.
I agree. Nothing more to
Yeah, with demonstrating transparency without compromising confidentiality, I think of like with what I do. Yeah, HIPAA doesn't allow you to, you know, send out information or anything that's supposed to be held confidential, or a lot of it is confidential. And the second part is definitely yes. For that, so.
I think for the first question, I think it's really hard sometimes. Because I think it's not that we don't want to answer the question or we don't want to share it, but we legally can't. And I think that's really hard sometimes for people to understand that. And sometimes then it looks like you're not being transparent, but it's just one of the hard things with it, that it's the state doesn't allow it. On the second part, I agree with everything. The only thing I want to add to that is we have to remember that everybody does things in a different way, gets their information. Some might be just by radio, some might be just by Facebook, some might be just by the Richland Observer, some might be by the shopping news. You know, we have to remember that we need to make sure that we're covering all avenues because everybody gets their information in a different way.
Any other discussion? And trust and transparency. All right. Our journey through the GCs is coming to an end. GC 9, the board self-assessment. So the first bulleted subject is purpose of evaluation. Why is it important for the board to assess its own performance regularly? Should the focus be on individual performance, team dynamics, or both? Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Bailey.
I guess I'd stay on target. So if we're not assessing our performance, how do we know if we're getting the results that we really wanted to have? The dynamics. It's been said a lot tonight that we can always get better. And if you're not assessing your performance, how are you going to get better? You don't necessarily know where some of the areas of opportunity might be. And focus should be on both the individual performance and team dynamics. Evaluate the whole and also the individual pieces. The sum of the parts is greater than the individual pieces put together. So you can have a great team, and if you have one bad apple, it affects the whole team. So we have to look at both and how they everybody interacts with each other.
All right. RGC 9 right now. Okay. So it's regular board assessments important because it clarifies roles and responsibilities, allows the board to evaluate its composition dynamics processes. I read how often, from what I read, every 2 or 3 years to do regular assessments, and using tools like self-assessment surveys, peer reviews, and formal board evaluation policy, ensuring consistency, objectivity, and transparency. demonstrating the board's commitment to excellence and responsible leadership. That's what I had out of that one. And should the focus on be on individual performance, team dynamics, or both? I think it needs to be both.
The only thing I want to add to that is we lead by example.
You took my words. No, I think, it is important that we, you know, assess ourselves and make sure that we are meeting the goals that we set for ourselves. I always think that, each of us are unique in our own way. We each have our strengths. But I don't think there's been a meeting that I haven't left, that I haven't learned something new, you know, just from putting our heads together and seeing how we can make something better. And I absolutely think it should be both. You know, it's gotta be an individual, we each bring something to the table, but then as a team, we make it the best it can be for our administration and our school.
I honestly don't have much to add, but assessing performance is really important. Like I said earlier, you can't rest on laurels or accept status quo. It's not our role just to go to a meeting. Always challenge ourselves, learn, get better. All right, any other discussion on purpose of evaluation? Okay, then moving on to frequency and process. How often should the board conduct formal self-assessments? Annually, semi-annually, or after major milestones? Should we use a standardized tool, external facilitator, or self-developed rubric? Mr. Miller.
I guess probably yearly would be most appropriate unless there's a situation that needs to be evaluated more frequently. It looks like a hybrid approach using standardized tools and an external facilitator. From what the research says, kind of yields the best results. The choice should be guided by the board's goals, such as improving strategic oversight, identifying skill gaps, or preparing for funding rounds, and should be part of a multi-year assessment. So that's what I'm gonna stick with.
I don't have anything else to add.
I put down semi-annual and as well as major milestones. I think a year is too long, so I think that that's, the semi-annual. And then just if you have something major to just, you know, really look at that information. I kind of feel like while we have, a second part, a standardized tool in place, I don't think it would be a bad thing to have an external facilitator because maybe they're seeing something that we aren't seeing. So sometimes I think that that's important.
Yeah, for me on the frequency, kind of follows the same thought process as an earlier one for superintendent. For me, it's formal annual is fine. But I think we should always be continually assessing one another, our peers, as well as ourselves too. It should never stop, you know. Whenever there needs to be feedback, we should be open to receiving that feedback, but also not being afraid to give some feedback too. So while a formal assessment could be annual, I think it's as frequent as it needs to be, really, just so we all continue to learn and grow. Standardized tool, external facilitator, self-developed rubric. There are resources available to do that. We used CISA 3 years ago or so, with some help on some assessment tools. So we can absolutely use, you know, external facilitator or third party to do that, to just to get the ball moving. But it would be nice at some point, you know, to come up with something on our own as we, you know, get into a rhythm and a groove and understand what that looks like.
I agree. The only WASB does have an assessment tool that is free for us to use every year.
That will last me, no CC3 does too.
And, I think some of that might also depend on the dynamics of the board. If we're struggling for whatever reason to get along or have consensus or those kinds of things, that you might need to have someone from the outside come in and take a look at some of those dynamics. But I think for the most part, doing what we have to do, completely agree on the as well.
All right. Any other discussion on frequency and process? Okay, we'll move on then to criteria and metrics. What indicators best measure board effectiveness? Student outcomes, meeting efficiency, policy compliance, or community trust? Should the evaluation include feedback from the superintendent or key stakeholders? Mrs. Thompson.
The answer to the first part, I put on their student outcomes first, and then the rest should follow. And the second part is, I said, yes, definitely should have feedback from the superintendent. Or key stakeholders.
I basically had the same thing, student outcome, and community trust. I think one of the things that I, got a message from a community member, not that long ago, and they said one of the things that they really have enjoyed seeing is that our board is agreeing, that it's usually not a split vote. It's almost, we're always in agreement, and to them, that sent a really loud, clear message that our board is working together. So I think, you know, I mean, the community is paying attention, you know, to what we're doing and the goals and where we're headed. I also said yes, that from the superintendent or the key stakeholders, I 100% agree that that's a yes from me.
Yeah, I have nothing to add other than to maybe go a little bit further on that second bullet point. Should we be getting feedback from the superintendent and key stakeholders? Absolutely. And they owe it, you know, to us just as much as we owe it to them to get that feedback as continual as possible.
And definitely need an external measurement, because we can think we're doing great. And for the people that we're supposed to be working for don't see it the same way, then we definitely need to know that. Then obviously the indicators of best measurement, where are we at on our vision and goal accomplishments? If we have a mission statement, a vision statement, and then goals, we have to know how we're doing with reaching those targets. I also wrote down administration results along with student outcomes, because if we don't evaluate that side of what we're doing, because if we're not giving good direction, how can we, and we can have the highest standards that we want for student outcomes, but if we're not giving good direction on how to attain those goals, how's it gonna actually happen? So we have to make sure that Mr. Board has clearly defined goals from us as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with what's been said, and yes, should be feedback from the superintendent and key stakeholders. So that if there are issues that need to be addressed, that they're brought to the forefront, and we can work on addressing them.
Any other discussion on criteria and metrics? Move on then to follow-up and improvement. How should results of the self-assessment be used to guide board development or training? Should the board create an annual improvement plan based on assessment findings? Mr. Axel?
I think it's really important that we all can improve on it. I think it's really important that we accept constructive criticism. Is there a way that, we could get better at what we're doing? I mean, there's always room for improvement. So I think we just have to really reevaluate and is something working or is it not? Is there a way we can make it better? And as far as the annual improvement plan, I say absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We, develop processes and policies, from the results of these assessments. We can obviously come up with our own board development plans based on those things as well. And I'm sure we can get resources like from CISA 3 or WASB or somebody to facilitate, some training, formal training and such from those self-assessments as well. And should we create an annual improvement plan based on findings? Absolutely too. I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think with the assessments, those will provide a series of greatest opportunities, so we can focus on those. If we're right there on some small things, why focus on that when we might have something that we're need more work on? Helps provide a roadmap for our development, and then absolutely need to have an improvement plan. Need specific direction to plan and track changes and improvement. Need to know where we need to go. The slide that had the arrows pointing all different directions. If we don't know that we might have, we think we're all moving in the same direction. But if we have 2 or 3 of those things that are out of alignment, how do we get those back in alignment if we don't know about it?
Yep, self-assessment can help with personal improvement, fostering open communication, encouraging reflection, and promoting a culture of continuous growth. And I guess the board should create an annual improvement plan based on assessment findings.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Definitely for improving, constantly improving and being open to constructive criticism, things like that, because you can't grow if you're not pushed out of your comfort zone. So that's the only way you're going to become stronger with that. And definitely yes to the second part.
Great. Any other discussion on follow-up and improvement?
He said it earlier, leading by example. We expect Mr. Ward to do assessments on his staff, those folks to do assessment on their staff. And if we're just sitting back and, hey, y'all have to do this and we're not doing it ourselves, it's it could lead to some potential conflicts. So, like I said, it was leading by example.
At the end of the day, we have all going in the same direction, same goals, outcomes, expectations. So you get alignment on that as well. All right, any other discussion? All right, continuous learning. What commitments should we make to ongoing board education and reflection? Should the board formally schedule learning or governance review sessions each year? I'll start this one. Yes, absolutely. I think through the assessment process, I think layering goals, personal goals and board goals into that is absolutely something that should be considered. There's lots of webinars and short courses and all these things offered by WASB and CISA 3 and even the state convention in January. There's a lot of things that you know, through the assessment process, I think it would be advantageous for board members to, you know, for board education and reflection is get more involved in a deeper level of learning and understanding and start taking these things more for personal development and growth, but also to help you in your effectiveness as a board member too. And should we be doing annual governance review sessions? Absolutely. This year we did for a 4-part series. I absolutely plan on doing that next year if I'm still in this role as board president, but hopefully if I'm not, that continues over the summertime in between school years. I think timing worked out really well with the later meetings and then, you know, trying to educate the board and the public on, you know, board governance and board development situations. To your point earlier, how do you explain, you know, the legalities of things to people in the public? It's difficult. So I think we owe it to ourselves and owe it to everybody else, all the way down to the student in the hallway, you know, to continually have those open meeting sessions for development and governance.
I agree. Biggest thing is having it scheduled. Because if it doesn't get scheduled, it always gets kicked down the road. No commitment or deadline, then it just ends up being all talk, no action.
When can I do that?
I agree with it. I mean, we don't really have anything to add. I mean, we can always keep working.
As far as the board education or reflection, I would really highly encourage, all board members to go to the state convention if they have that opportunity. I have learned a lot by going. I love the roundtables because you learn what other communities are facing, you know, how they've dealt with it. There's just all kinds of, so much information that they share there. It's really there's just so many things offered. It's just a really nice way to learn new things. I said yes on the second part. I think that is important that we do the review. And then to end it, I don't know why I wrote down John Pizza ?
I did have pizza tonight, yes. To answer your question, yes. Right before I came.
It was important a few weeks ago, I wrote that down.
That's perfect.
I gotta take it, that's a no. Yeah, that's
What
right.
a great way to end it. It couldn't have worked out any better. Well, okay, it's not fair to say it's ended. Is there any other discussion? Or do we leave on the pizza?
With you about the pizza.
Okay, all right, I can live with that. All right, so this has been a 9-part series over like at least 3 meetings. We have partial maybe. So this part of it's come to a close, but it's not done. So, Mr. Board, I'm gonna assume now we're gonna start compiling all these notes, start setting up our own policies based on the discussions and the notes and stuff in this similar format, correct?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways you can go. You can continue to have workshops and try to write the policies based on everything that you've heard. You can assign, you know, me and John to try to get a draft ready for you, try to get some of the legwork done and then refine it. Or anything else, right? We can't meet the week of the 21st, which would be the 3rd Wednesday, because some of us, most were at the state convention. So if we did this on the 4th and you wanted me to try to, you know, get a draft, take all the information, let's get a draft together, bring it back for review, make sure it reflects what individually and ultimately as a board, what you want for each of these. I think that's enough time for me to be able to do that. If you want to bring it all back here and do it yourself, then that is totally fine as well. You just need to direct me on what you think you need to do. Or would like to do.
My initial thoughts is allowing the engine to at least come up with something to start the conversation. I think it might be less clunky than us going through mountains of meeting notes to do this. I think to have at least a starting point, we can absolutely modify and change as we go. But I think for efficiency purposes, that might be the best approach. But again, I'm open to whatever it is you all want to do.
I agree.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Not really a policy writer, so.
I'm not a policy writer either.
I've had to write a lot of policy, but I'll tell you
I can
what,
revise them, but come up with
Yes.
them from the ground up, that's tough.
I agree, having something that we can just add and subtract to is gonna be the most efficient.
All right,
Does that
so,
work?
yeah, I can't guarantee I'll have all 9, but I will get as many as I can, and if all goes well, I will. But
Yeah, I don't think we need all 9.
I don't know that we'll get through all 9 in one night anyway.
No, I think it's gonna take
Yeah.
a few meetings.
Right.
And if it comes down to where it's the 4th, right?
The
February.
4th of February, yes.
And if it comes down to where the 4th doesn't work, it has to be the 18th.
I will definitely have some done. I mean, so that we can,
Yeah, and
Least,
I'm
yeah.
only saying that as a potential option, because I would rather the board have time to at least go through like 3 of them well ahead of the meeting to prepare themselves for a valuable discussion and possible revisions that they can do ahead of time versus trying to see it the first time in a meeting. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Just like we did with
Yeah.
well, all these stuff. that we just-
Yeah.
I want us to use our time the most best use.
Yep. Okay, well, let me, if you're okay with it, let me take a stab at it, see what I can get done.
Yeah.
If you folks in the meantime could, and maybe you have been doing this all along, but the notes, I didn't put them in this one because our last meeting was with Steve here, so we didn't really have a summary of it. But if you look back on the December 17th and just go through them one more time and make sure that I'm not missing anything that you really feel was important or was emphasized at that meeting. But then I'll kind of use this summary of notes as a starting point.
If you
try to
could
get some
send us
things
the
down.
notes from tonight.
Yeah,
as
I'll
soon
try to
as
get those done here
possible,
by
that would be
Friday.
good, too.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then I'll just send them all. Then you'll have them and you can look at them all.
Yeah, it'd actually be better to send them all in one chunk.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other topics of discussion on this, Mr. Gord? Or are we good to move on to 3B?
No, I definitely think you're good to move on. I sincerely appreciate the dedication to going through this. It's a process, but I think it's a good, healthy process. And I enjoyed listening to the different points of view and seeing our board work together like this. It means more than you know. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you for me as well. It's actually been fun. It's been a change of pace, and like I said, hopefully we're trendsetters for other parts of the community, other boards and organizations, and it's been a lot of fun so far, being open and honest and having those communications. All right, anything else from anybody before we move on? Okay, so we will move on then to 3B, update on steering committee members. So I believe it was around the 19th of December-ish. Email was sent out after our meeting we had that week. Where we all selected committee members. The goal was for everybody to hopefully get 2 and to continue moving down your list until you got 2, 1, or none. There's still some here that are open.
I don't have a lot of sheets, but at least you can kind of, maybe you guys can share. You can share what you were here.
So I think Mrs. Sharp's out of the country, correct?
It's my understanding.
Does anybody know when she's returning?
She will not be here next Wednesday. I know
Yeah, she
that.
won't
So
be
it's
here.
at least
Okay.
one more week.
Well, I will call her nominees then, and take care of that. For the rest of you that have any open spots to fill, please try to get that completed as soon as possible. The due date of this is the 9th, Friday, so keep that in mind because Mr. Schrader wants to start reaching out to folks to set up the first meeting, which will be in January. So there's that, but then too, I do see that there's some marked yes in here, but there's no phone numbers, no emails. Those numbers and emails are extremely important because that's what Mr. Schrader is going to be using to reach out to the folks for their communication. So please fill those in as well. If you have questions, because you don't necessarily know the person personally, feel free to message the group. Somebody can probably point you in the right direction to get you contact information. If I missed anything yet, Mr. Board, anything you want to add so
No.
far?
I think that's great. No, I think we're good.
Okay. Goal here obviously was to get 14. 15 with the additional student, but the reality is we're not gonna get that many folks, which is okay. So we at least need 10 to 12 people for this to be an effective committee. Which is why I'm asking folks call and go through their list until they get their two, at least. Or whatever they get, 2 or 1. I will call Mrs. Sharp's folks. Should we not get enough, then we're gonna have to go down the road of if there's additional alternates under somebody, then we're gonna contact them. To hopefully get to that 10 to 12 benchmark. If we completely exhaust this list and we're stuck at 8, then we're gonna have to come back to the drawing board with some official new alternates, correct, Mr. Board?
That's correct.
That's the process. We'll have to do that back in an open meeting, so. Something that I would assume if we know by Friday we're short. We should be able to add that to next Wednesday's meeting, I would assume.
We can do that. Yes.
I guess the question I have for that is, we had a list of a whole bunch of people that were placed in different
Yeah.
categories.
They're all here.
Are you okay if all of the people that haven't been contacted yet get contacted? They all say, no, we're still short, just to go to this list and make contacts there? Do we want to?
No, that's where this has to come back to a meeting in open session, and we'll have to do the same thing to nominate people around Robin in open session. That, from my understanding, we have to do
I think,
formally.
the way I understood Steve's email, that if you've exhausted all of the names on the original list,
Yeah,
and so there's no more alternates at all, right? They've all said no. That the board had already approved these as nominations so that you could use this, but you couldn't pick Jane Bosworth because she's not on this list. It was never discussed at
got it.
all. That was how I understood that.
Okay.
So maybe we'll reread that email and see if it's.
We'll have to reread it, because I just want to be sure, because nominees were nominated in open session. This list of people here in this sheet technically weren't official nominees, is why I'm questioning it.
Sure.
Well, I
On
guess
the
I,
final list, but again, we can get clarity from Steve.
Well,
How we're supposed to do that.
where are we at? Like, Tiffany, are you still gonna contact Eric? Is that, or is he
I'm glad you asked me a question, because I have a question.
I'm not really ready this thing.
I've contacted my last person already. I'm waiting to hear back from him, because I was in contact with him today. But But just out of curiosity, so if he says no, then can I just move on to, let's say Sheila's alternate that she never contacted, she's already got her 2 yeses. Can I move on to her alternate and just call them?
That's the
Or should
idea.
I say, hey, Sheila, I'm gonna call your alternate?
Well,
Or-
Sheila's got hers.
Yeah, she's got hers too. So that's why I figured just to keep it going and keep this process going so it's
Yeah.
not slowed down, can I just start moving on to,
Again, this is not my gig.
yeah,
So
other
if you have a
alternates?
different thought, I would suggest if you are going to take an alternate from somebody else's group that has already got their yeses, that you reach out to that board member and make sure that no one else has reached out as well. So if you say, Sheila, I'm gonna reach out to Mick Cosgrove, okay? Then if Scott also gets a no, she's gonna say, Sheila, I'm gonna reach out to Mick Cosgrove. Tiffany's already doing that. That'll give us a little check and balance to make sure that we don't have 3 people calling one person.
Yeah.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's still 10 people on here that are potential yeses, and we only need 2 to 4. So I tend to think we should be okay.
Should be okay.
But yes, the answer to your question is yes, I have reached out to him and been in contact with him today and basically waiting for a response back. Which
Okay,
hopefully I'll get that tomorrow.
sure.
But
Sheila's got 2. Aaron, you're gonna call Kim and Megan,
Yep. Yep.
and I don't know if we should have you do that. Looks like you struck out on 4.
I'm not a good salesman. What can I say?
I'm talking to you all from
Yeah, you
school
may.
then.
Scott,
I don't
are
have a
you
future in
still trying to get a hold of the first one?
I talked to him once already. He had to do some checking as far as work goes. So
Okay.
I'm talking to him tomorrow.
It looks like Brian's got 2 and Brady's made 1 phone call. He's not here tonight. Aaron, will you reach out to Brady then too
Yep.
and see where he's at? So,
Just a quick question too, one of, well, my only yes that's up there is a possibility halfway through, he may have to not continue. He said he would do it, but it sounded like if things were just too busy and he couldn't continue with it. How do you deal with that? Because he said, yes, he would.
Oh, Ron.
Yeah.
Well, I thanked him at the city council. Yes,
Did
I
you?
appreciate-
Okay,
appreciate
wonderful. Thank you.
it.
Keep it coming.
are you thinking halfway through these initial 4 or he'll do the initial 4 and then he may
I
have to
think
bug
he's
out at
just
the end?
worried about if he can't make it to every single one.
I think Steve said that was.
And I
natural.
told him that was fine. I'm sure there'll be others that won't make it to every single
Yeah,
one.
Steve did mention
He
that.
said,
Not everybody showed up on it all the time.
Yeah.
but if they can't make a commitment to at least half of it, then that's a different conversation.
I think his main concern was he feels like he wants to be at every single one, but if he can't be at every single one, then maybe he should say no. And I said, no, you just make what you can make. Oh,
80% of Ron is still
Yes.
pretty good.
yes,
So,
yeah. And I know, knowing him, he's going to do his best.
Okay.
I kind of had one question too. It's like, it was a little bit nebulous on the time frame of these meetings. Is that something that just determined meeting to meeting, or because it was like 6 to 8 or 7 to 9? Just for, having more of a concrete answer, for these meeting times. Is there anything standardized?
That was just like, this is what we see typically is 6 to 8, 7 to 9, never more than 2 hours. But he never gave a definite time. That's gonna be determined when he starts reaching out to community members, hopefully on Monday, to set up the initial meetings, and then that's what they'll discuss.
Okay.
What works best for people going forward, every third Thursday? Okay, 6 to 8 or 6:30 to 8:30, 7 to 9, like they're gonna determine that, not, like, we don't have a
Okay,
black and white answer for
that
that.
sounds good. That'll be in that interview that he has with them.
Yep,
That'll be good.
they'll probably button that up in their first meeting. Would be my assumption, but that's not to say it wouldn't change here and there, when it needs to, but I can't speak on behalf of them, so.
I would agree 100%.
What's the best way of pushing for an answer from somebody, but not like pushing them to where they just go, no? Because we've only got a few more days, and like I said, I'm waiting for a response. And I sat on one response for over a week and a half. And I talked to the person a couple times, but yet I didn't want to be like pestering them. I need an answer, but yet,
At this point in the game, I don't know if it's completely fair to call somebody tomorrow afternoon and say, I need an answer by tomorrow.
right,
The reality is, nothing's gonna be done with this list of people until probably Monday at the earliest. I think it would be completely appropriate and fair to these people if we just said, hey, can you at least, if you need the weekend to think about it, can you at least let me know Monday? I think that's more than fair. Would you agree,
I
Mr.
agree
Mayor?
100%. If it's somebody you've already had a conversation with, you might be able to, push that up a little bit so you can give the next person a little bit of time, but I get it. Sometimes
Yeah.
people just don't want to say no, but they really
Yeah.
can't. And then sometimes they really have things they have to look at. So everybody's a little different.
I even opened it up for people, because, yeah, some people, they just don't want to say no, so they don't want to call you back. So I said, text me. Because sometimes it's easier for them to say no that way, and then I can just move on,
Yeah,
and I just, or I say, please, get back to me with a yes or a no.
Yeah.
Don't just not get back.
I would say, for folks who are gonna be making any calls between now and I would try to get it done at least by tomorrow. But give an expectation of, can you at least let me know by end of business Monday? That's fine. If you call them Friday afternoon or Friday night and give them that, you might get a different answer. That's what I'm saying. I would make a very, very strong effort to do this tomorrow.
two students are really excited. So whatever that's worth. So don't scare them off the first night.
All right, I'd miss anything.
I don't think so. Sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns from board members in regards to the steering committee? All right, then. Again, I want to thank everybody. It's been fun. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Troxel. Your second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller, discussion? Mr. Miller?
Hi.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I know I'm all there. I'm getting his phone. I said his phone and it's not, I'm thinking it's set up for voicemail. So the next time I see Derek, I'm like, come on. You know better than that. So then, yeah.
Like Dr. Carlo is on.
midnight. And I'll be like, you're up, I'm like, yep. And then we'll go.
And that's the other thing, it's like, he's so busy.
I know, we're working on a bunch of
Dr.
stuff for the 80
Dr.
tournament.
Carlo.
Oh, yeah.
So I talked him into the circle.
He's probably like, I'm gonna shoot you. I have a feeling that's what he's gonna say to me. I'd be like, okay, Derek, let's go for a walk, let's go talk. But no, and then when I asked him about it, he said, yeah, send me more information, I am interested. So then I sent him a bunch of information and basically just cut and pasted what he said on the thing, and I sent it to him, and now he's probably like, ooh.
We have another lady. So she says herself.